You know what? I should have seen it coming. Really, I should have. But when you've been running security for the Galactic Trade Station Omega-7 for 3 cycles, you start thinking you've seen everything the universe has to throw at you. Spoiler alert. I hadn't. My name is Vex-Prime, and I'm what you humans would call a rent-a-cop with delusions of grandeur. 6 arms, 4 eyes, and a shell harder than most military-grade armor. I'm a Krillian, which means I'm naturally equipped to handle trouble, or so I thought until I met her. The trouble started on what should have been a perfectly ordinary shift. Station Omega-7 was buzzing with its usual mix of traders, smugglers, and tourists pretending they weren't smugglers. The artificial gravity hummed at a comfortable 0.8 standard. The air recyclers were working overtime to filter out the smell of Zephyrian fish paste. And I was counting down the minutes until my break. That's when she walked in. Now, I'd seen humans before. Nasty little Deathworlders with their single hearts and pathetically fragile bones. This one looked particularly unremarkable, about 1.7 meters tall. Brown hair tied back in something humans call a ponytail, wearing standard civilian clothes that had seen better days. She moved with that peculiar human gait, all loose joints and controlled falling that somehow never resulted in them actually hitting the ground. Her name, I learned later, was Maya Torres, 23 standard years old, fresh off a transport from Earth's Luna colony. Carrying nothing but a worn duffel bag and what I initially mistook for confidence but later realized was something far more dangerous, competence. She approached the registration desk where Gix-9 was processing newcomers. Gix is a Malarian. Think of a slug the size of a small transport, but with better manners and an unfortunate tendency to secrete anxiety pheromones when stressed. Next. Gix gurgled through their translator, and Maya stepped forward. Maya Torres, she said, sliding her identification pad across the bioscanner, looking for temporary quarters and work opportunities. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual, except occupation? Gix inquired, their eye stalks swiveling to study the readout. Freelance problem solver. Maya replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I should have paid more attention to that smile. The real fun started about 2 hours later. I was making my rounds through the lower commercial district when I heard the commotion. Raised voices. The distinctive sound of furniture being relocated without the owner's consent. And underneath it all, laughter. Not the good kind. The source was Blix's Cantina, establishment that served drinks to anyone with credits and asked very few questions about where those credits came from. The owner, Blix Thornscale, was a reptilian with delusions of hospitality and a tendency to water down his drinks with industrial coolant. His establishment attracted exactly the kind of clientele you'd expect. I pushed through the crowd that had gathered outside, my 4 eyes taking in the scene. 3 Gorvian mercenaries had cornered someone at a back table. Gorvians are bad news on their best days, 2.5 meters of muscle, bone spikes, and barely controlled aggression. These 3 were clearly having a worse-than-average day. The someone they'd cornered was Maya Torres. She sat calmly at her table, a half-finished drink in front of her, looking for all the worlds like she was waiting for a delayed transport, rather than facing down 3 professional killers. The Gorvians were doing that thing they do, puffing out their chest plates and making growling noises that their translators rendered as creative combinations of profanity. You owe us money. Human, the largest one, a scarred brute with yellow eyes, was saying, 10,000 credits. Plus interest. Maya took a sip of her drink. That's interesting, she said conversationally, because I've never seen any of you before in my life. Wrong answer, Yellow Eyes snarled. Corval here says you cheated him at cards on Kepler Station, the second Gorvian. Presumably Corval nodded enthusiastically. He was missing 2 of his bone spikes and had the look of someone who'd made poor life choices and was committed to making more. Maya glanced at Corval with the kind of mild interest you might show a particularly unintelligent houseplant. Corval. Is it? Short, green, smells like fermented garbage, and has the intellectual capacity of a broken calculator? Corval's eyes narrowed. That's me. Never seen you before in my life, Maya repeated cheerfully. The third Gorvian. who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward. This one was different, sleeker, more controlled, professional. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," he said in the kind of voice that suggested misunderstandings could be fatal, "but debts must be paid. One way or another. I should have intervened then. Station regulations were clear: no violence in public areas, no intimidation of registered visitors, no breathing on other people's food. Standard stuff. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was professional curiosity. Maybe it was the way Maya sat there, completely relaxed, like she was exactly where she wanted to be." Maya finished her drink and set the glass down with a soft clink. "You know what?" she said, standing up slowly. "I think there has been a misunderstanding. See, you think I'm some helpless little human you can shake down for credits I don't owe you." She smiled, that same not quite reaching her eyes smile I'd seen at registration. "The misunderstanding is thinking I'm helpless." That's when Yellow Eyes made his first mistake. He reached for her. Now, Gorvians are strong. Really strong. Their homeworld has gravity roughly twice that of most civilized planets, and they're built like organic siege engines. When a Gorvian grabs you, you stay grabbed until they decide otherwise. Yellow Eye's hand closed around Maya's forearm with enough force to snap most species' bones like dry twigs. I actually heard the crack from across the room. Maya looked down at her arm, then up at Yellow Eyes, then back at her arm. "Ha," she said thoughtfully. "That's going to leave a mark." The cantina had gone dead silent. Even the background music seemed to have decided this was a good time to take a break. Yellow Eyes grinned, showing teeth that could open shipping containers. "Still feeling tough, human?" Maya flexed her fingers experimentally. The broken arm moved in ways arms weren't supposed to move. "You know what the funny thing about pain is?" she asked conversationally. "What's that?" Yellow Eyes asked, probably expecting her to beg or cry or do whatever it is he imagined broken humans did. "It's just information," Maya said. And then she moved. "I've seen a lot of fights in my time. Bar brawls, street fights, full-scale military engagements broadcast on the entertainment channels. I thought I knew what fast looked like. I was wrong." Maya's good hand came up in a short, sharp motion that caught Yellow Eyes under what humans would call his chin and Gorvians would call their primary jaw hinge. The sound was like a hammer hitting a melon, if the melon was made of bone and the hammer was moving at roughly the speed of light. Yellow Eyes' head snapped back with enough force to rattle his teeth. His grip on Maya's broken arm loosened, just enough for her to twist free, and that's when things got really interesting. She spun, her broken arm hanging useless at her side, and drove her knee into Yellow Eyes' solar plexus. The impact lifted all 2.5 meters of Gorvian muscle off the ground and sent him crashing into a table occupied by a family of tentacled merchants who'd been trying to enjoy their meal in peace. Total elapsed time: maybe 3 seconds. Corval and the professional exchanged glances. Corval, being the intellectual powerhouse he was, decided this was an excellent time to charge. Maya watched him come with the kind of detached interest a scientist might show while observing a particularly slow chemical reaction. At the last possible moment, she stepped aside, grabbed a chair with her good hand, and introduced it to Corval's face at high velocity. The chair, being made of genuine Terran oak and built to withstand the rigors of space travel, won the encounter decisively. Corval went down like a sack of poorly organized minerals. 4 seconds total. The professional, demonstrating why he'd earned his reputation, drew a plasma pistol from inside his jacket. Smart move, really. When faced with an apparently insane human who could turn furniture into weapons, increasing the range was tactically sound. Maya looked at the pistol, then at the professional, then back at the pistol. "You know," she said, still holding the remains of the chair, "that's actually not a bad idea. Mind if I borrow it?" Before anyone could process what she'd just said, Maya threw the chair, not at the professional. That would have been too predictable. Instead, she hurled it straight up at the cantina's ceiling, where it struck one of the support beams with enough force to dislodge a section of the overhead lighting fixture. The fixture, all 50 kilograms of reinforced metal and high-intensity illumination, dropped like the galaxy's most expensive hammer directly onto the professional's head. He went down without a sound. 5 seconds. Total. The Cantina remained silent for exactly one heartbeat, then someone started clapping. Slowly at first, then with more enthusiasm as others joined in. Within moments, the entire crowd was applauding like they'd just witnessed the performance of a lifetime. Maya took a bow, wincing slightly as the motion jostled her broken arm. Thank you, she said graciously. I'll be here all week. Try the fish paste, it's almost edible. That's when I finally remembered I was supposed to be doing something about this situation. I pushed through the crowd, all 6 arms ready for action, my security uniform broadcasting my authority to anyone who cared to notice. All right, everyone, stay calm, I announced in my most official voice. Station security. Nobody move. Maya looked at me with interest. Oh, good, she said. I was wondering when you'd show up. I think these gentlemen might need medical attention. I glanced at the 3 Gorvians. Yellow Eyes was groaning and trying to figure out which way was up. Corval was unconscious but breathing. The professional was making the kind of noises that suggested his encounter with the lighting fixture had scrambled his neural pathways. What happened here? I asked, though I'd seen most of it myself. Self-defense, Maya replied promptly. They attacked me. I defended myself. Standard procedure, really. With your arm broken? Maya glanced down at her arm as if she'd forgotten about it. Oh, this? It's just a flesh wound. Well, technically it's a bone wound, but you get the idea. You need medical attention. Probably, she agreed. But first, I should probably file a complaint. These 3 tried to extort money from me for a debt I don't owe. That's fraud, isn't it? Plus assault, battery, and disturbing the peace. Oh, and they made me spill my drink. I'm not sure what the penalty is for that, but it should be severe. I stared at her. You just took down 3 Gorvian mercenaries with a broken arm. Technically, I took down 2 of them after the arm got broken, Maya corrected. The first one broke my arm while I was taking him down. Timing is everything in this business. What business? That not quite reaching her eyes smile was back. Freelance problem solver, remember? Though I'm starting to think this station might have more problems than I initially calculated. Good thing I'm here to help. That's when I realized 3 things simultaneously. First, Maya Torres was not the harmless human civilian I'd initially assumed. Second, the next few days were going to be very interesting in the worst possible way. And third, I really should have paid more attention during those briefings about human combat capabilities. The medical team arrived 15 minutes later, followed closely by my supervisor, Captain Rax Delta. A Krillian like myself, but with twice the experience and half the patience for what he called unnecessary complications. Vex-Prime, he said in the tone of voice that suggested my next performance review was going to be memorable. Explain. Explain. I gestured at the scene. 3 Gorvians down, 1 human standing, and a cantina full of witnesses who seemed to think they just watched the entertainment event of the cycle. The human was defending herself, sir, I reported. The Gorvians initiated contact with fraudulent debt collection and escalated to physical assault. Captain Rax Delta's 4 eyes focused on Maya, who was patiently allowing a medical technician to examine her broken arm. And she did all this? In approximately 5 seconds, sir. 5 seconds. Yes, sir, to defeat 3 Gorvian mercenaries. With a broken arm, sir. Captain Rax Delta was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communicator. This is Captain Rax Delta to Station Command. We need a full background check on a human named Maya Torres, Priority Alpha. Problem, sir? I asked. Vex-Prime, he said quietly. Do you know what humans call it when one of their kind can take down 3 professional fighters in 5 seconds with a critical injury? No, sir. Tuesday, and that, I realized with growing horror, was when our real problems were just beginning. The background check on Maya Torres came back 6 hours later, and let me tell you, it made for fascinating reading. The kind of fascinating that makes you question your career choices and consider early retirement on a nice, quiet agricultural world, where the most dangerous thing you encounter is an overripe fruit. Former Terran Marine Corps. Captain Rax Delta read from his datapad, his voice getting more strained with each line. Specialized in hostile environment operations, served 2 tours in the Kepler conflict, decorated for valor under fire. Honorably discharged after single-handedly eliminating a pirate base that had taken her entire squad hostage. I felt my shell plates tightening involuntarily. How many pirates, sir? 47. 47 pirates. And she was alone? According to the report, yes. They made the mistake of separating her from her squad and assuming she was neutralized because she was wounded. Captain Rax Delta looked up from the datapad. Sound familiar? Oh, it sounded familiar, all right. It sounded like we had a problem roughly the size of a small moon orbiting our nice, peaceful space station. There's more, Captain Rax Delta continued. After her discharge, she worked as a security consultant for various shipping companies. Her success rate for resolving problematic situations is 100%. What kind of problematic situations? The kind that usually require military intervention or cleanup crews. That's when my communicator buzzed with an incoming priority message. Officer Vex-Prime to Docking Bay 7 immediately. We have a situation. Captain Rax Delta and I exchanged glances. What are the odds, I asked, that this situation involves our favorite human problem solver? I'd say approximately 100%, he replied grimly. We were right. Docking Bay 7 was in chaos when we arrived. A Syndicate cargo hauler had docked about an hour ago, and its crew was currently engaged in what could generously be called a heated discussion with station personnel. The discussion involved a lot of shouting, several drawn weapons, and at least one small fire that nobody seemed particularly concerned about extinguishing. At the center of the chaos stood Maya Torres, her broken arm now in a proper medical brace but seemingly no impediment to her ability to cause trouble. She was having what appeared to be a perfectly civilized conversation with a Vraxian smuggler roughly 3 times her size. Vraxians, for those fortunate enough to have never encountered one, are basically what you'd get if you crossed a grizzly bear with a particularly nasty mood and then gave it opposable thumbs and a comprehensive education in creative violence. This one had the distinctive scars and cybernetic implants that marked him as Syndicate muscle. The cargo manifest is incorrect, Maya was saying pleasantly, as if she were pointing out a minor clerical error rather than accusing known criminals of falsifying official documents. According to station regulations, all incoming shipments must be properly declared. The Vraxian, whose name tag identified him as Grimjaw Bloodfang, because apparently Syndicate naming conventions were written by someone with all the subtlety of a plasma cannon, but leaned down until his fangs were approximately 2 centimeters from Maya's face. Listen, tiny human, he growled. You don't want to mess with cargo that doesn't concern you. Bad things happen to people who ask too many questions, Maya nodded thoughtfully. You're absolutely right. Bad things do happen to people who ask too many questions, she paused, tilting her head slightly. But worse things happen to people who try to smuggle illegal weapons through my station. Your station? Grimjaw laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You're just some human dock worker who got lucky with a few Gorvians. Actually, Maya corrected, I'm the new head of cargo inspection and security compliance, appointed about 20 minutes ago by Station Command after they reviewed my qualifications. Funny how word travels fast when you demonstrate competence. Captain Rax Delta grabbed my arm with 2 of his hands. She got promoted? He whispered urgently. When did we promote her? I checked my communicator. Sure enough, there was the official notification, time-stamped 18 minutes ago. Apparently when Admiral Crex 7 decided our current cargo inspection protocols were insufficiently thorough. This is bad. Been very bad, sir. Maya had produced a handheld scanner from somewhere and was cheerfully running it over the cargo containers. Let's see what we have here, she murmured. Standard consumer electronics, agricultural products, luxury items. The scanner beeped ominously. And oh, look at that. Approximately 50 military-grade plasma rifles, 20 cases of explosive ordnance, and what appears to be a small tactical nuclear device. The docking bay went very, very quiet. Grimjaw's hand moved toward his sidearm. You're making a big mistake, human. You know, Maya said conversationally, not looking up from her scanner. Everyone keeps telling me that. First the Gorvians, now you. I'm starting to think the definition of mistake varies significantly between species. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Raxian Syndicate smugglers attempting to move illegal weapons through a civilian trade station in violation of approximately 47 different galactic laws, Maya replied promptly. Grimjaw Bloodfang, crew member, wanted in 6 systems for armed robbery, assault, and something the translator is rendering as aggressive dental hygiene. Your ship, the Painful Retribution, is currently broadcasting a fake registration beacon and is approximately 6 months overdue for a safety inspection. She finally looked up from her scanner, fixing Grimjaw with that same mild, interested expression she'd given the Gorvians. Did I miss anything? Grimjaw drew his weapon. Big mistake. Maya moved faster than I'd seen her move in the Cantina, which was saying something. Her good hand shot out and caught Grimjaw's wrist just as he cleared leather. There was a wet snapping sound, and suddenly the Vraxian was holding his sidearm in a hand that was bending in directions nature never intended. Oops, Maya said sympathetically. That looked painful. The rest of Grimjaw's crew, apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, started reaching for their own weapons. This turned out to be another mistake in a day that was rapidly becoming defined by them. Maya spun, using Grimjaw's considerable bulk as a shield while she drew his dropped weapon. Her first shot took out the overhead lights, plunging the docking bay into emergency illumination. Her second and third shots disabled the environmental controls, causing the artificial gravity to fluctuate wildly. In the confusion that followed, Maya seemed to be everywhere at once. She moved through the chaos like she was choreographing a particularly violent dance, her broken arm seemingly forgotten as she systematically dismantled the Syndicate crew with a combination of martial arts, improvised weapons, and what I could only describe as aggressive problem-solving. The whole thing took maybe 90 seconds from start to finish. When the emergency lighting stabilized, 6 Syndicate smugglers were unconscious on the deck, their weapons scattered and broken. Maya stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing heavily, still holding her scanner. Well, she announced to the stunned onlookers, I think that concludes today's cargo inspection. The shipment is officially rejected pending full investigation by Galactic Customs Authority. Captain Rax Delta stepped forward, his 4 eyes wide with something between admiration and terror. Torres, he said carefully. Was that entirely necessary? They drew weapons in a civilian area and threatened station personnel, Maya replied reasonably. Standard security protocols clearly state that such actions warrant immediate neutralization of the threat. You memorized our security protocols? I read them during my medical exam. Interesting document. Very thorough. Although I did notice a few areas where the procedures could be optimized for efficiency. I had the sinking feeling that our security protocols were about to become significantly more efficient, and probably more violent. The aftermath was surprisingly straightforward. The Syndicate crew was processed and handed over to Galactic Authority agents who arrived with suspicious promptness. The illegal weapons were confiscated, cataloged, and shipped off to wherever confiscated illegal weapons go, and the Painful Retribution was impounded pending investigation. Maya Torres was officially confirmed as head of cargo inspection and security compliance, a position that apparently came with its own office, unlimited authority to inspect any cargo passing through the station, and a direct reporting line to Admiral Krex 7 himself. 3 days later, I was making my rounds through the upper commercial district when I encountered her again. She was sitting at a small cafe, reading a datapad and sipping what appeared to be actual coffee, a luxury that cost more than most station workers made in a month. Officer Vex-Prime, she greeted me pleasantly as I approached. How are you adjusting to the new security protocols? The new security protocols, implemented 48 hours after Maya's appointment, had resulted in a 73% reduction in smuggling attempts and a complete elimination of dock brawls, and what the statistics cheerfully reported as 0 incidents of threatening behavior toward station personnel. They're very effective. I admitted, though some of the traders are complaining that the inspections are too thorough. Quality control is important, Maya replied seriously. You can't maintain proper standards without proper oversight. And the weapon scanners you recommended? Essential equipment. I'm surprised the station operated so long without them. The new weapon scanners were military-grade sensors that could detect everything from concealed plasma pistols to sharpened eating utensils. They'd been Maya's first official recommendation, installed within hours of her appointment. I sat down across from her, curiosity finally overcoming professional caution. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you really here? Because freelance problem solver looking for work doesn't explain someone with your background ending up on a backwater trade station. Maya set down her datapad and considered the question. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked tired. Not physically tired. She seemed to have unlimited energy reserves, but tired in a deeper way. You know what the problem with being really good at solving problems is? She asked finally. What's that? People keep bringing you bigger problems to solve. She gestured around the station. I came here because I thought it would be quiet, peaceful. A place where the most complicated problem I'd face would be checking cargo manifests and making sure the coffee dispensers were working. And instead I find a station with inadequate security, corrupted cargo inspection protocols, and a docking bay apparently designed by someone who thought safety features were suggestions rather than requirements. She smiled ruefully. The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor, so you decided to fix it. I decided to make it work properly. There's a difference. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the steady flow of traders and travelers moving through the district. The atmosphere was noticeably different from when I'd started my shift 3 days ago, calmer, more orderly, significantly less likely to result in property damage or medical emergencies. The Gorvians from the Cantina were released this morning, I mentioned. I heard. Charges dropped to disturbing the peace and public intoxication. Very reasonable. They asked specifically to be assigned to a different station for their next job. Smart of them. Maya picked up her coffee again. Learning from experience is the mark of intelligence. Is that what you call what happened in the docking bay? A learning experience? Among other things. She gave me that not quite reaching her eyes smile again, but this time it seemed more genuine. Tell me, Officer Vex-Prime, do you enjoy your work, usually? It's been more interesting lately. Good. Because I have a feeling things are going to stay interesting for a while. As if summoned by her words, my communicator buzzed with an incoming priority alert. I glanced at the message and felt my shell plates tighten automatically. Problem? Maya asked, noting my reaction. Pirate ship requesting docking clearance. The Savage Retribution, registered out of the Outer Rim. 300 crew members, heavily armed, and according to this intelligence report, they're looking for someone. Maya set down her coffee very carefully. Someone, a human female. Former military. Wanted for destroying their base of operations and eliminating their previous leadership structure. Ah. Maya stood up, her broken arm moving more freely now that the healing accelerators had done their work. Well, that's inconvenient. Maya, I said carefully. Please tell me you're not planning to handle 300 pirates the same way you handled the Gorvians and the Smugglers. She looked at me with genuine surprise. Of course not. Officer Vex-Prime. That would be completely impractical. I felt a wave of relief. I'm going to handle them much more efficiently, she continued cheerfully. After all, I've had time to study the station's defensive systems, and I have some ideas for improvements. And that's when I realized that Maya Torres hadn't come to Station Omega-7 looking for a quiet job. She'd come here looking for a place to make a stand. The pirates were going to learn the same lesson the Gorvians and Smugglers had learned. When you threaten a human's new home, you don't get 40 seconds. You get exactly as long as it takes them to decide you're no longer worth keeping alive, which, in Maya's case, was looking to be significantly less time than it would take to properly fill out the incident report. I activated my communicator. This is Officer Vex-Prime to Station Command. We're going to need more medical teams, and possibly a cleanup crew. Definitely a cleanup crew. The savage retribution would dock in 2 hours. I gave them 30 minutes before they'd be begging to leave, if they were lucky.